Captain Picard accuses the Ligonians of committing an unfriendly act. Riker thinks being called commander is quite formal. And Data has told Geordi 662 jokes to no avail. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby. My name is Ryan T. Husk. Today we're doing a review of, Next Generation, Star Trek Next Generation, Season 1, Episode 3, Code of Honor, written by Catherine Powers and Michael Barron, directed by Russ Mayberry and Les Landau. More on that later. This was October 10th, 1987. And also very special thanks to Tim Baum, a.k.a. Grandpa One, for sponsoring this entire season. Thank you, Tim. We love you, man. And everybody just listening in, the reason we got a little sidetracked there is because Denise very expertly put her hands up in the Ligonian welcome move. How's everybody doing?
Doing good.
We're good. We're good. The rain has let up for a little break, and we're doing good.
And we get to talk about Code of Honor. What more could you ask?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it seems like the Ligonians invented the hands up, don't shoot greeting.
Plus.
Wow. That's where that came from.
That's where it's from, yeah. Come on, not me.
They're all Trekkies.
And Picard's trying to get him. He's like, hey, huh? Am I right? Am I right? Dude's like, yeah, I guess.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, this was a doozy of an episode, that's for sure. There's a lot of going on in here.
Was there?
Kind of. Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah.
I have scratched my head on this one for so long, and even while shooting it, I was scratching my head, thinking, what are you getting at? What is the point of this? Now, given the 24th century, we don't supposedly see color, of skin at this point. We are beyond but a person tuning in 1987, it's so blatantly just, what are you doing? What are you saying here? And what are you inferring? And it's so clumsy and awkward and so ultimately just offensive in so many ways, in a certain way, And I just, people have said they should remove Code of Honor from the series, from the availability in Next Gen, which of course I say absolutely not. Absolutely not. That would be the quintessential example of cancel culture. This was what people were writing in 1987. This happened. We should look at that and try to decipher, try to unravel what is the underlying meaning of what are you trying to say here? It sits so uncomfortably for me as a woman. What was inferred, that women are nothing but the land they own, that, they're nice little things, but they really are useless and meaningless in every way, except for the property they own and the value they bring to this marriage. And,
and also how in both scenarios, they are being used as pawns in this male game.
my God, the most misogynistic, uncomfortable, scenario that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I mean, what an insight into a female co-wrote this,
Mm-hmm.
But again,
that was a little puzzling.
It is very, on seeing it again, just now was really astounding. I mean, I felt it. Listen, I walked around thinking, there's no way this is going to air. I mean, it just pushes.
Oh, really?
While
you were shooting.
I
don't remember who it was, but there were some actors saying, I remember just a couple years ago that kind of, I don't remember who it was, but they said something to that effect of like, are we doing this? I guess we're going to go, where there was a little bit of trepidation while it was being shot. And I wish I'd remembered who'd said that.
I mean, the whole premise, and of course I was so central in this episode. So again, I was really cool. Well, it's funny, the first couple, it feels like it's the Tasha Yar story. But it really felt like I was bearing the brunt of this episode. So I was particularly concerned what this was, where this was going, and what this, so many stereotypes and so much, stuff that hadn't really been talked about yet, but that were a Black woman, is being discarded so that her Black husband can take prefers the white woman. I mean, even though that's not inherently what they're intending to say, it says that. And this has been an issue in our culture that wasn't really talked about at this point. And so, it was really, it hit so many notes.
I believe that they were insensitive of a lot of things. One, dealing with race and the way that Black men are perceived, specifically categorized in this area of sexuality and extreme sexuality. Those kinds of perceptions have been, predominant throughout history when talking about Black men, and I think they really played on that in this particular episode. And that's one of the first things that I found offensive, was the way he was kind of brooding over you in the beginning, I want this woman in a kind of caveman type of mentality or attitude. And that was the first thing I felt. I was like, oh, wow, we're going there. We're going to do the classic.
Yeah. This is what we're doing. Man. And you're like 7 minutes in. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And also Tasha's, well, I was just going to say, I was astounded, and I'd forgotten that, even to the very end, Tasha, when the wife makes her choice to leave him, and she says, "You want him?" She, instead of going, "Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Look what he did to me. Look what he's done. He kidnapped me and made me, ask me, demanded that I kill you. Of course not. I don't." She's like, "Well, I kind of do, but there'll be complications."
That was something I had missed previously, and
Me too.
really, and this time I was baffled by that. I was like, wait a second, hang on a second.
Yeah,
I understand her not wanting to offend a new race, or, you got to be diplomatic. But what they were insinuating was that Tasha was actually a little bit, kind of into it or into him. And in the past, we've said, look, it's almost impossible to show two people believably falling in love or liking each other in an episode.
Right.
But it's even more impossible when you don't show any reason why they would. They gave us zero reason. Like, I remember I was thinking, you take away the kidnapping part and you give them a couple nice moments, like, for example, if they say, oh, you better not walk on this rug, otherwise that's against the rules, and she stumbles onto the rug, and then maybe the leader sees it and he looks around, nobody's watching, and he just kind of helps her up and kind of says, we won't say anything. Like a little moment like that, and they could be like, oh, wow, he respects her, she respects him. You give him these kind of moments, but there were none of that. There was him kidnapping her, and then she's like, oh, well, he's kind of cute.
What? Wait a minute, that's so out of character of, how they set her up and the whole Starfleet agenda and being a Starfleet officer and the prime directive and all of that stuff, that it was like, man, you guys are just throwing all of your logic, the premise, the foundation of this entire show out the window.
Mm-hmm. It was I think it was a poorly executed way to try to tell a story about the needs of the many versus the needs of the few, or one in this case, which would be your character. And they did a poor job of relaying that to me as the viewer, because they put no emphasis on your safety or well-being. That was an afterthought to the vaccine or to respecting somebody else's culture, or it became the last important thing, your safety, your well-being. I mean, they
even
were talking
Troy.
about they were talking about, when you were kidnapped, they were like, well, is she going to be raped or something? They were casually saying, well, I don't know.
Probably not.
Typically,
Let's
it doesn't.
Patient. Let's be patient.
Give it 24 hours.
Let's respect their culture more than we get our goddamn security officer off the ship.
Give him 24 hours with her, and let them figure it out. I'm like, what?
I know.
Like, what the hell? Who's cool with that?
Just every note is a head scratcher in this. Yeah. Like you were saying, Ryan, before we started, I was trying to find one redeemable, moment. I like this shot that you put up, in the background.
Right. This was one of the few things where I was like, oh, that's a nice shot. Let me put that in the notes so I have one nice thing to say.
One thing that we can,
pretty.
Go, okay, it's pretty. I like the silhouettes of the trees, I
like the amount of work that the art team put on the marble floors and the red. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But I was like, okay, not everybody screwed up here. The art department did their job. They're like, hey, whatever. We still make things look good.
Right. Oh, and what about what about the stunt double? God, it's so obviously bad and wrong and shot so badly at times. It's so clearly not me. I mean, like full facial, not me. It's one thing to be behind me, and you got the wig and the suit, and it looks, the shape looks right. But if you're cutting to my face and it's so obviously not me.
Yeah, they've done that now twice, because in the pilot, when you were doing the fight scene in the Q, in that Q trial, they had an aerial shot of you fighting, and I was like, "That's not her. Like, that's not even not even a good job of faking it. It was like a guy with brown hair and everything. I was like, dude, at least give him a blonde wig
with a cigarette."
It's so. Oh my God! It's so.
I was like,
bad.
This guy's got a mustache. Make him shave. What kind of stunt double?
And they trained. I mean, I was, we were working out on the side with the stunt people. We had all that, going on. They really didn't need a stunt double in this.
No, I thought you were very good at just making yourself look very physically capable. In the keto scene, for example, I mean, your body stance and the way you were holding yourself and carrying yourself. I was like, oh, she could do something. She could do some damage. You didn't look awkward. Like, sometimes you watch a basketball movie and you could tell the guy's never played basketball in his life.
Totally.
Doesn't know how to dribble properly.
I feel very called out right now, Cirroc.
We won't talk about that.
Thank you.
But this is, I believe you as the security officer. I believe your physical prowess. I believe that you're capable, more than capable to get the job done, which is why all the more reason why it seems so awkward that they would put you in this position. And even furthermore, they just played around with Tasha's sexuality. Remember, she has trauma
Major.
that she has a literally a case file of trauma where all of these people know about her history. They know that she's survived gang rapes and grew up in a harsh environment at a very young age and had to really overcome a lot of things. This is the exact kind of thing you don't want to put somebody in with
it was
that
like Stockholm syndrome all of a sudden.
I'm in the same scenario. Sexualized.
Yeah, fighting for your life.
Desired, fighting for my life. The guy wants me. He's going to keep me. He's going to take me. And these guys were like, let's be patient.
And meanwhile, you have an audience like with Picard and the crew like sitting there like, oh, very good. Let's watch this.
Let's be patient.
Yeah, let's be patient. Let it play out. And I'm thinking there's no regard for this woman's trauma, her history, the kind of mental anguish she's been through, the kind of anguish she's currently going through right in front of your face. I remember when Picard gets to the station, he's like, have they been treating you well? And I'm like, I'm held against my will. Even if you're giving me caviar and foot massages, I didn't sign up for this. It's not a vacation. This is like you holding me against my will. So, yeah, you can treat me well, but I didn't sign up for this treatment. And I just felt like it was a whole lot of things that they also wanted to hit home the Prime Directive. And that was another kind of, underlying message that was running through the storyline. So it was about the needs of the many. It was about the Prime Directive and kind of combining those two Starfleet rules to see how they would problem solve in a situation like this. I just was like, I just thought it was tasteless in so many ways. But Ryan, what's the actor's name who did play the main Ligonian? I think his character was
Luton.
It's Jesse Lawrence Ferguson. Was
exactly
it Jesse
that.
Lawrence Ferguson? Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say he did a great job, though, given the fact that he was given these parameters. Obviously, he's
voice.
Not writing. Yeah, his voice, his performance.
He's got to do voiceover. I was thinking if they ever need somebody to replace James Earl Jones, like he's got that same kind of richness to his voice.
And I thought his performance was very good, even though I didn't like the fact that he was playing these stereotypes. I did like his performance, and it's not easy to carry a whole episode as a guest star.
With a rough script.
With a rough script like that. Bring that kind of, I thought he brought a lot to the character. He was interesting. I was looking at him. The screen loved him. His voice was obviously phenomenal. And I thought his performances opposite Picard were a very good match for Picard's power, or the strength that Picard kind of exudes. I thought it was well matched by Jesse Lawrence Ferguson's performance.
That's a good point. He does need to match up, with energy wise, rather than otherwise he kind of feels like a shrinking violet type, and he had to play somebody that's perfectly fine going toe to toe with some of the big boys of the Federation. That's true.
Yeah, and there is an interesting dynamic there, a tone and of the whole Ligon planet is the culture is predicated on honor, on respect, and that is a very interesting kind of notion to understand. That they are such. Their strength comes from the feeling of being respected and honored. Mm-hmm. So, when you you've got this black king and this white captain, and the dynamics that are being shared in that, and that Picard really needs to understand that his place of understanding as a culture is not his place. So he must respect that. Mm-hmm. And that's just been a real, historically a complicated issue, in our society.
I wish I had gone in. Sorry, Cirroc, what were you going to say?
No, what you were saying, Denise, kind of reminds me of the United States' interaction with other countries, and how we try to frame their society in whatever lens of our own Western ideas, and try to ridicule these people, whoever they are, for having a belief system or having traditions and culture that are outside of the quote unquote norms of Western civilization. So I do think that there is a good,
hang on, Cirroc. FBI has just entered the chat. You were saying?
Oh, yeah. I was saying,
no, it's weird. Oh boy, let's go to those other countries and tell them the best way to live.
I mean, it happens, and so this is something we've done throughout the Middle East. I mean,
absolutely done historically, absolutely from the beginning of this country, from the beginning of time. And not only us, but God, I was just in Mexico, and you see what the Spaniards did, to that country. They came in, and the first thing they wanted to do to the indigenous people is Christianize them, basically get them all signed up to their religion, and so that they could they could get a place in heaven, and they could rise in their stature, and basically they could take their land, and get them to obey. So it's, my God, this is just.
Yeah, I think the problem I had was with the kidnapping, period. I feel like if they had have altered the story slightly, and made this person more intelligent about the way they operated, I think, for example, let's just put it out there, if culturally or in their custom they wanted to get you, right, onto their planet, there could have been a way to exchange and say, well, we'll offer you our captain or our security officer, and we'll do an exchange so that we can learn more about each other's culture. And it could have been very simply left at that. And then you get caught up in a situation that's weird or something, and that you're uncomfortable with.
And then certainly it's a lot easier for us to believe that Tasha might have feelings for this man if something like that happens, and they're sharing good moments together, and he's showing her about his culture, and they're exchanging ideas. Suddenly, it's an episode about two cultures, people from two different cultures coming together, and like a little Romeo and Juliet kind of thing, It's so much better that way.
So, why didn't you just embrace that story? They're both, you've set it out where they're both feeling for each other. There's an attraction that's sort of underneath everything. Let's build out, let's explore that. What is that? And then it becomes, truly a dilemma for both of them. Does she stay? Does she go? Does he, demand it? Does he let her go? What a great, all with this vaccine being, eminent and needed. And so what an interesting story that would have been.
By the way, speaking of the vaccine, somebody said that at the end of the episode, once they finally get the vaccine, and we know countless millions are dying from this, and they're like, all right, go to that, whatever that planet was, Warp 3.
Oh.
What? Warp 3? What's going on? They're like, we don't have that many vaccines. We got to let a few of them kind of, see what happens.
And by the time we're just cruise over there. Okay. So a million dies. They've still got a couple million they'll save,
Warp 3. Give me a break. Anyway, we've got to jump to our break. I was also hoping to provide a little bit of backstory on this episode, which you may be shocked to find out does not make this episode any more understandable.
Okay.
But we'll be right back on the seventh rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc, Lofton, and Denise Crosby.
Hello.
Here are the Trivioids for this week. Boy, there are a lot of landmines to step on, but I think I navigated through them. Styrus 4 needs a rare vaccine. The Ligonians have a highly structured society. Achilles' fever is dreaded. Ligon wants to see a holodeck. Picard accuses the Ligonians of committing an unfriendly act. Ooh. Picard lets Wesley sit at ops on the bridge. Riker thinks Commander is quite formal. Geordi doesn't like the razor that Data adjusted to perfect efficiency, and Data has told Geordi 662 jokes to no avail. They did kind of have an obsession with Picard being like, well, this is an unfriendly act and you're being mean and I'm not sure if you're they just kept saying like, he's like, well, we will be your friends. And like when he said, when the head Ligonian said Luton was like at the beginning, he says, oh, well, if you guys respect us and really kiss our butts and do everything right, then we will consider you friends and we will give you the vaccine to save millions. And Picard's like, oh, why are they clapping now? Why not just say, well, yeah, you should.
Great. That's why you're here. Yeah. I mean, it's a political negotiation. Yeah. Can you imagine? You know, like, we meet the new president, Lula of Brazil, comes to, the White House, and you see Biden just, everybody, Kamala Harris, applauding everyone, because we're here to exchange natural resources.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? And that was one of the things that bothered me watching this episode was I felt like Picard came across as weak to me. And, usually
everybody did.
Usually we see the captain being proactive and making decisions that will, whatever, we're going to get us into trouble, but it's going to try to solve the situation. So, Picard, like, I think like Sisko in that situation might have said, okay, I need a team of you guys to go over here and go get the, vaccine without their permission. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have you guys go and do this while I set up a meeting over here. So there's going to be multiple things happening. I felt like Picard was going along. So what shall I do next? And what about where do I stand? And where do I wait? And that's not the kind of actions that I see a captain taking. They're usually like proactive. This is the plan. This is what we're going to do. I need you to go over there. I didn't sense that. He was kind of, following the carrot.
Absolutely right. He would even say to Tasha, you think are you sure you're up to this? You think you can do this? Really?
Instead of coming with a plan and saying,
you're not doing this. You're my security. You're chief of security. You're not doing this. I'm not letting you die. You think you're pretty sure you can take her. You're pretty sure you can win this fight, but that's not good enough. It's not pretty sure.
It's not worth the risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Great observation. Yes. I also, we talked a little bit about this last week with the question of Troy being constantly, at his side, and that
it's not good.
This was like there was a shot when they walked away. They were in like lockstep.
Oh, I played that 3 times.
Yes,
it looked like a dance.
Yes,
I'm so glad you caught that.
I would be like, ew. Like,
give me some room
over there. Give me some space.
But they turned in complete exact. I played it back 3 times because I was like, "Is this like a little dance? Was this rehearsed?"
Absurd. It's just absurd.
It was absurd.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That it's not the worst thing in the show, but it's like, come on, guys.
Well, I mean. There was a moment when Picard looks over at Riker for permission, Riker's like, I'm not going to let him do it. I won't do it. And I'm like, who the hell's the captain here? Like, you're waiting for permission. What
about when Riker was about to go rough up a teenager? When Picard says, oh, Wesley's in the turbo lift. Riker's like, don't worry, I'll handle this. And he starts storming. I'm like, whoa, what are you going to do? I think about, what are you going to pick him up and throw him out of an airlock? Teach him a lesson? What's going on here?
like the other guy, like in the, what was it? I think it was in Encounter at Farpoint when Worf was going to shoot through the view screen. Yeah. You know, at the alien.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, how'd you get this job, Worf? Like, you don't shoot the.
Another. I'm sorry, but I have to get my nitpicks out of the way. And I know this is earlier on, and I know this is 25 years or so, or 20 something years after the original series went off the air. You guys are finding your feet underneath you, trying to find identity, and so this kind of hypercriticism is through the lens of looking back now 40 years or 35 years. So it's a lot easier to say, hey, that's not, and that's not, women should be treated like this, because we have evolved in that time as far as a society, as far as how we think about how things should be. But
a little bit.
A little bit.
Baby steps.
But the thing that bothered me as well is they keep playing on this Wesley at the helm or on the bridge trope. This is the third episode.
So irresponsible.
It's the third episode. It's happened twice already. It's too much in too short of amount of a span. And it also bothers me. And I'll tell you why. It is a disrespect for all of the people who spent years in Starfleet Academy, earning their way, earning their stripes, working their way up from the lower decks to being on the bridge with the captain and having a seat at the bridge.
And you're putting the lives of 1,000 people at risk on a
right.
It'll probably be fine. I mean, what's all with all this probably be fine stuff?
But that's so anti-military.
1,000 lives.
Yeah. When can I don't care if it's the admiral or if it's the captain. When does his nephew or kid or friend's son get to steer the ship? Or fly the stealth bomber.
Sounds like Hollywood stuff.
It's ridiculous because it's disrespectful for the people that had to work their ass off to get to that position. It's actually a form of kind of nepotism and almost white privilege, if I have to say. It's kind of a white privilege thing, because who else feels like they're entitled to just go in here and walk into this would be called classified. This area would be classified. It's a starship going out. So it's this is not, you don't get to be privy to these discussions happening in this section of the hull. I just feel like
I'm glad you mentioned entitlement, because there was actually a line there where when Picard is kind of telling Data about the Prime Directive, and he says, "I'm sorry, this is becoming a speech." And Troy said a line that I don't think was intended as a double entendre, but it sounded like it. She says, "You're the captain, sir. You're entitled." And I was like, do you realize what you just said?
Speaking of entitled.
I was like right on the nose right there.
Right on. God.
I don't like Wesley being just running amok inside of the bridge. It doesn't seem right. It's not a kid. This is not a toy. This is it makes light of the seriousness also, the gravity of what's happening.
Right. We're supposed to see it on the other side. We're supposed to think, Picard is being such a curmudgeon. But I don't. I'm like, no, Picard's right. Get that kid off the bridge. This is insane.
But it also sets up the character of Wesley to be just unruly, inappropriate, privileged little squeaky nerd, and that, and it was you'll see how it fulfills itself, because he just becomes he
doesn't know the boundaries or the limits. There's no boundaries, no limits.
Right.
It's good.
That's right.
And as Beverly as the mother, she's the one supposed to be, laying out boundaries for her kid and saying, no, this is as far as it goes.
Yeah, but she's guilting Picard into it.
Yeah,
well, exactly.
Yeah, she's helping. She's making it worse. So I'm thinking, I don't like this whole character arc they have him started off on. It's not a good feel for me. I really like him, and I think he's a very adorable kid. As he just looks like a good kid in this show. I don't know what he was like, but
amazing.
Yeah, he comes across like a really good kid, which is why I would love to see him, but being more on the mischievous kind of running around the ship doing stuff type of character, as opposed to like, dude, get out of here, man. Seriously,
I think it would have been nice. We're always talking about him having this genius. And, we saw a little bit of it in The Naked Now of him, doing this tractor beam and, all these different things and kind of, calling the shots to get us out of where we were going. But, I think it would have been nice to kind of get to know him, who he is in his talents and his depths.
Good point.
And take the time, maybe interacting with other kids on the ship. And there are other kids on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And
let us come to the conclusion that he's smart rather than just telling us he's smart.
Exactly. See, not tell.
Show, don't tell. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Let me give a little bit of backstory on this, because I was so baffled by this. I kind of did a little bit of looking. I wish I had time to go a little deeper. But what I found were just more question marks. Initially, when this was written, and it makes you think, well, was it the script that was the major problem somewhat, or the directing? But it was originally supposed to be the alien race, the Logonians, were supposed to be a reptile race, reptilian in nature, maybe like the Jem'Hadar or something like that. And they were supposed to have like Japanese elements, which is like everything is about, honor and customs and all that kind of. They were kind of trying to take from these ancient Japanese kind of cultures, right? So it's supposed to be a mixture of, say, like reptilian with Japanese elements, and Star Trek does that all the time. They grab elements from certain cultures that we know in the past and present. But then at the beginning of the episode, apparently it shifted to ancient Chinese, because Picard said, an old culture that we revere is very similar to yours, the Sung dynasty in China, which is pronounced S-O-N-G, but he pronounced it Sung dynasty, which was like 900 AD to 1300 something AD or something like that. So now went from Japanese to Chinese. They're clearly not wearing Japanese or Chinese garb. It looks more like Indian garb. So they're just the Logonians. So they're just throwing, and then they didn't end up being reptiles. I'm like, what happened here? I mean, I don't know if that script was a gem, but certainly along the way, all of these things I don't know if it was budgeting, because obviously, Denise, you probably know budget cuts. Sometimes they're planning on doing something big and they're like, nope. Ira's been upset that, he wanted 40 or 100 extras for past tense and they got like 8. He's like, this doesn't look like anything. But anyway, it just seemed. So the last thing on that was that the director, Russ Mayberry, and I don't know if this ever happening on any other episode, to my knowledge, he ended up getting fired because Gene Roddenberry was not happy with, among other things, just the casting of an all-black cast to play these reptilian Japanese, Chinese Indians. And so he replaced him with the AD, who was Cirroc Les Landau. But anyway, that's just brings up more questions.
God, I don't, that's so funny.
Do you remember? Okay, you don't remember who was directing, like if he directed just a little bit or a lot or anything?
I think he directed a little bit, if anything. Yeah. But I can't even, I know the name, Russ Mayberry, but I can't even envision him. I can't picture him at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I did not know even that part.
And the co-writer, Catherine Powers, did do one other Star Trek episode, and it was the second episode of Deep Space Nine as well. And that's it. And the one that co-wrote with her had no other writing credits.
Michael Barron. Okay. In reference to what you just said, Ryan, first note I had in my note was when they mentioned the Sung Dynasty and China. Yeah. I think it was the first time that I can remember now that China has been referenced by itself in a Star Trek episode. And so I thought that was kind of cool, actually, that it's not just about America, which they always talk about, Starfleet Academy and San Francisco and a lot of American references, but they actually made a reference to China in this episode. I kind of loved that a little bit.
Right. And especially that Picard said it's a culture we all admire. So he was painting it in a positive light, so it didn't come off as like, oh, you guys act like these guys back in the past. He was saying we all admire it. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a good thing because that's also part of our collective history. The other thing I liked, you mentioned the clothing, and I thought it was more reminiscent of the Moorish style of clothing that the Moors wore during the 7th to
interesting
13th century, I think.
Yeah, because I was seeing like the turbans and all that, but you're right. Now that you mention it, the way the sashes kind of come over, they kind of have like a style of the Jin, DJIN. Kind of, that's you're probably right. It's probably closer to that.
Now, and again, in reference to what you were saying about what the original idea of the Langonians and them being a reptilian, that's another thing that bothered me, because they were dealing with an alien race, but these just look like black Americans on the planet.
They don't even have a forehead.
Yeah,
give them of the week.
Something. Give them a wrinkled nose. One thing on their eye, maybe even like contacts or something. Something to make them look like aliens. These were humans dressed up in Moroccan clothing, and I'm like, what is going on here? This is not exactly.
That's what's weird. Did they substitute blackness?
Yeah, for their
alien.
Exactly, and that's another problem I had with this.
This has been.
I think that's the crux of it. I think that was the big thing
problem.
that
this has been the deepest rooted theme problem for this episode. I'm just going to call it out.
I agree.
This is in itself that's what you're saying is that this is the alien planet.
Right.
And they're black. But they're they look exactly like us.
They speak English.
Black. And they're all black. Like they're all
but it's
black.
okay because they like porcelain horses and like, they wear Moroccan
clothes. We're not all white on our ship.
Yeah. So there it is. That I'm like, where is the thing that differentiates makes them alien?
Absolutely.
And I also noticed that Worf wasn't in this episode, if not at all, maybe very little, but I don't think at all.
Not at all.
Exactly.
And there's a reason for that, because it would, here a real black alien, would contrast against these fictitious black aliens that they're trying to sell us. And it would look ridiculous if you saw the two of them next to each other, because then it would look like these are just humans. And I think there was a purposeful extraction of Worf from this story because of the contrast there. It would openly and be blatant that they have put little or no, they put zero effort into making these people look like they're aliens.
They subbed it out for blackness.
Yes.
They swapped it out for blackness.
Exactly. Zero effort.
I finally had a term for it. I've been grappling with this. Why this is so uneasy.
I think that's the big. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
The core root of the problem with this episode.
And that's what I was saying. Digging into the background of it it explains some things, but it doesn't actually help their case. Like I was kind of baffled. I was like, maybe I can get more answers from, reading deeper into it. But really that just kind of almost makes it look worse.
Makes it worse.
Yeah.
It looks worse to me that your original concept was a reptilian type of thing. And
we can't afford lizards. All right. Can we afford black guys? What is this? That's terrible. What is that supposed to mean?
But they used reptilian kind of creatures down the road.
Yes.
I think in episodes coming up, you'll see a kind of reptilian, creatures. Did Michael Westmore need some time off that week, or did
they spend too much on week one?
Oh my gosh! I just think it was.
I think we're giving them too much credit. Actually, I think truth be told, they sat around and said, "Wait, they're all black. That'll be interesting."
Well, that's the word.
Yeah.
That's why apparently, and this is, hearsay. I don't know how reliable all this stuff is, but that apparently is verbatim why Gene Roddenberry fired the director, was because he took issue with the guy's casting choices. And for the reasons that I'm sure the same reasons we're all talking about right now, which was why he fired him.
Well, I mean, Gene had to have been in on it from the beginning, though. I mean, I would imagine any casting for the guest stars or certainly the main characters, they had to go. Gene had to approve. It wasn't just Russ Mayberry in the room with Junie Lowry.
This is why you need people.
Producers were in. Yeah.
This is why you need Black people or somebody who's sensitive to these kinds of things. Right. In the decision-making flow of the process, because somebody should have been sitting there saying, no, this is bad. We have to change this up. Make them look like aliens. So you can put ridges, you could put dots, you can put polka dots on them. You could do whatever you want.
Right.
But let's take this out of the realm of the African-American man that we know today, because this is exactly what it looks like. And there's no differentiation. And
that's a really good point.
And now you layer on, I want the white woman, for me, I'm sexually aroused by her. And now we're just feeding into this.
Right. And if this is an alien race, another planet, and they have an entire planet full of exactly looking people to the human being species and population that we have, that would be the discovery. That would be the thing to be like, wow, I can't believe that we found a group of people that look exactly like it. They speak English and everything.
Not for the last time either. It's going to happen again.
That would be the discovery. That would be the central theme to the episode. We just found an entire civilization of people that have have evolved in the same human being species type of way that we have. They speak English, and they have some technology. They're beaming people. They have their own beaming devices. So they're not, they're pretty advanced group of people. That in itself should be the discovery.
Beautifully.
That would be the discovery.
Yeah.
But instead, they just really try to pass them off, and it would be no worse if they used any other demographic of people as the race to pass them along as aliens. If they were Latinos, if they were Asian, it would still be bad, because you have done zero modification to convince the audience that these are not human beings.
Yeah, you're just using the color of the skin.
I think that's great, Cirroc. I think that it's a good point where if there was a Black person in the room, not excusing any white people for not having caught this, but let's say that they didn't. And there was a Black person in the room that said, one second, please. Yes, great audition. Thank you. We'll be right with you. I couldn't help but notice that every one of the actors that are auditioning here are all Black. Is there a reason for this? Because either, as Cirroc said, you put polka dots on all of them or something, or you mix it up. But it can't. It's one or the other, and that that's it. Otherwise, this is going to look very, very bad, and it's also sending out a message, not just the optics of it. It sends out a message that we don't want to send.
Yeah, and then I would have also added to that the fact that
you
this
idiots.
main character can't, the way he was drooling over this white woman, it was like too much for me. I was like, this is too much. This is a trope. This is a stereotype, and they're taking it to the maximum degree here with the kidnapping and the whole life or death fight till death. But I want to say, because we've done enough trashing of this episode, I do want to talk about some of the good points and good moments.
Oh, well, we've got to go to the free for all. So sorry, everybody.
Let me get so many great things to say. Denise, this is for Denise. This is for you, Denise, because I thought you did a great job. This one line that you said when you said, they were talking about the whole, this is when he finally got exposed and his whole plot and his wife. But you looked at him, you said, how sad for you.
Yeah.
And the way you said it and you follow that lineup with such a waste. I thought those were the best delivered lines of the episode, and I thought you knocked it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is that your home run of the day? Ta-da!
That's my home run. Yeah,
there should be no home runs in this episode.
Yeah, that's my one and only home run.
I'll tell you
how sad for you, because I really felt sad for everybody involved in this, but you pretty much epitomized it with the delivery.
Exactly. I encapsulated the entire my through line for the episode.
Yeah,
in that one delivery. I was really saying how sad for me.
Do you have a home run for the day as best you can find one?
I'm going to give it to myself on this one, that I got through this damn thing alive, and had a career afterwards, and you know that's an out of the park home run right there.
Well, let's make it 3 for 3. I would have loved to see
a scene where you slap Captain Picard and say, "If you ever let that happen again."
For the record, I don't want to make you look bad in front of your new friends, but no, but I want to make it 3 for 3 because actually piggybacking on what Cirroc said, at the end of the episode, it hit me that we're only 3 episodes in, but the thought came to me where I was like, there is a real evident element that Tasha Yar brings to this show. And it hit me that it's such a travesty. We don't have to talk about it in this episode. We'll have plenty of time. That you were not in the 7 seasons, because there's a very clear nook, an element, a nook of the crew that you fulfill that nobody else does in this show, where we are or in the future. And it just made me really sad that we did not get to see that element throughout the show and fulfilled throughout the show and grow, and how it would have affected certain scenes and certain episodes and certain relationships. There was just a very clear thing that you fulfill in this show, that it's very evident.
That is so beautifully said. Thank you so much. It is interesting, again, what I'm experiencing watching this. Yeah. There is that quality that Tasha Yar has that's different from everyone else in just her she's grounded in you feel she's real,
authentic.
Exactly.
There's a lot of depth to that character.
Struggling with anything that comes up. She's trying to factor it in, figure it out. She's not the computer, that she's not data that's just espousing.
She's not the know-it-all.
Right. She's grounded, she's earthy, she's real, she's emotional, she's sensual, she's, there's things. And that is what I believe, because people have scratched their head and said, it's amazing you were only on the show 1 season. It feels like you were so present in this show. But I think she hits, that character hits people in the heart, and we'll see as we go along. I mean, these first 3 are super packed with, her.
Well, that's the thing, is all of this in just 3 episodes, right? So just 3 episodes in, we're getting all of this,
and I care so much about your character. I was like, what are you guys doing? It's not fair to her. Your character to me has really started off the best on this show.
Yeah,
it's the most grounded. It is the most believable aspect of the show so far, and
not
to
Wesley,
your credit, you've been kicking it out and knocking it out of the park. So
you're our slugger. You're our number 4 hitter.
Aaron Judge, look out, baby.
Yeah, here we go. She's our slugger, cleanup hitter. All right, look, let's hit the free for all. But right before we do, let's give a very special thanks to Homer Frizzell, Dr. Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson-Bey, #1 Grizzlies fan, Bill Victor Arucan, Titus Mohler, Darlena Marie, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton-Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, live from Tokyo, Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Jane Jorgensen, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. I doubt she's going to attend this one. We'll see on the other side. Stick around. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule. This is the free-for-all. We're going to have a blast. I don't think there were any non-appearance mentions today. I did not catch any unless somebody else did. Something that I forgot was, because we are masochists, Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Yeah.
This is probably like a solid 4, 5, 4 and a 5, 4.5. 4 point.
That's generous.
Anybody else have any guesses that doesn't happen to know the answer?
2.3.
Yeah, that sounds more.
3.7. Harsh critics today. Holy cow.
3.5.
The
$1.
answer, $1.
TJ's taking $1.
$1. It's like $1.
He's got the sticks.
DJ, you're not the only one.
Oh my God, you guys, are you serious?
TJ, that's awesome.
Oh, I gotta get some sticks too. I got my drums.
I want some too.
The sticks.
Okay, well, the answer was 8 point. No, it's a 5.1. I don't. Is this possibly the lowest rated? I don't know. I didn't check that, but it's certainly one of. Well, Malissa, start us off. Have you
Brian,
seen this
that's so
episode
hard.
recently? What'd you think?
I did see it recently. And well, I knew what the reaction was going to be coming in. So I tried to watch it with more generous eyes this time around. Well, honestly, I'd forgotten this episode. I don't remember watching it before.
Lucky.
But it reminded me a lot of a TOS episode. And I know that it wasn't written by Gene Roddenberry, but I heard his voice in this episode over everyone else's, over the writers, over the directors, over the characters. It felt like, it reminded me of this old movie, 1902 movie, A Trip to the Moon, where a handful of men climb into this hollowed out bullet and shoot themselves out of a cannon to the face of the moon. And it's really their story of what they imagine the moon might be like.
Yeah.
But they don't have the science to fill in the holes of this imagination. So they don't, and to me, it felt like somebody was trying to write a story of their curiosity of different cultures, but they did it in a way where it was kind of narrow and not as progressive as maybe 1987 would be. But it felt like, he was maybe going back to the safety of, the 60s and what he knew and all of that. So it wasn't as, a broad a scope of the story that he may have wanted to tell. So I think it fell short in that way. And maybe he was unintentionally, creating his own trip to the moon in a sense. That makes sense.
A lot of people said it was a very original series episode. It felt very much like original series, the costumes, the sets, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Fred Steiner was a original series composer, and he composed this episode. And that's why, actually, we didn't mention it, but that was maybe the best part of the episode, was the amazing composing and the scoring and all that. It sounded great. It sounded like original series. Poor Fred.
Well, and the scene between Geordie and Data was cute. The shaving scene.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't cover that.
Cute. I liked that.
You mean you didn't includely?
Oh no. TJ Jackson-Bey, let's include a little you. Who is that? Flanders? What do you think of this episode?
Have you tried watching it as a comedy?
Oh.
You have to.
I laughed a lot. I'll say that.
Okay. Captain Picard actually uses the word token in this episode when he presents the gift to Lutan.
Oh, really?
Cringe. He also offered to show Lutan the holodeck, but he wanted Riker and Troy to do that, and he emphasized that there were many uses for the holodeck.
Yeah,
I kind of wonder what Riker and Troy would have showed them, since we know them a lot better now. And Ryan, I'm sorry, but French is an obscure, ancient Earth language.
Oh, we didn't talk about that's right. He got so offended. I thought that was hilarious how he got all like, well, it's sophisticated and how would you know? You're British.
Right. Also, if Picard gets hurt, Riker's going to write him up.
Mm-hmm.
Data's tongue slips. That's it's kind of curious that happens, but it does apparently.
Yar can
I do appreciate from this episode. I've never, been one for how they bend over backwards to honor someone else's culture and not, include any elements of their own. But I do appreciate, kind of their way of navigating the Prime Directive is that we don't just come in and take what we want because we have the power. Like, we're going to try to work, within the system and, really, get to know another culture. As flawed as that's portrayed, that's still, a good ideal to have, I think. Also, hashtag laser cage match. How about that? Cage match with an electrical fence. That was pretty cool. And Hagon, after he got chosen as first one, and he's standing there behind Darlena, just kind of caressing her hair. He could not wait to get off the Enterprise.
Right? Yeah.
And lastly, okay, so they got the vaccine, mission accomplished. Millions of people are going to be saved. I'm pretty sure we're in a hurry to get there, so let's go at warp 3.
Yeah. Rude.
You don't want any speeding tickets.
Yeah. Well, no stranger to speeding tickets. Eve England is out in Wales, but do they give speeding tickets on the left side of the road?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know, metric system. So how do you feel about
her eyebrows?
That's about as rude as she gets.
Well, I didn't know anything about this episode before I started watching it, which obviously caused me some challenges watching it. I almost turned it off, actually, and I was like, no, okay, I've got to see it through. I've got to, it might get better. And then I did watch it, and I just, for all the reasons that I'm sure you already talked about, it just was just cringe the whole time, and I couldn't see past some of those problematic elements of it. And it wasn't until after I went back and obviously then started to read some reviews, and I was like, okay, so this is how everybody sees it. Because I was thinking, my gosh, what is this? We're in episode 3, and I thought, I don't know if I can continue to watch this TV show if it's kind of going to be like this the whole time. But it sounded like this is a blip, and obviously there were consequences to the directors, etc. at the time. So I felt a bit reassured after that, and sort of looked back at it in that context and how everybody was discussing it at the time and how people see it now. So I thought that was really interesting. But there wasn't much in the companion actually this time. But what was interesting was obviously the holodeck black and yellow screen that TJ's got. It's the first time we see that. And obviously, that becomes iconic. But they also said that that little device you were using, Denise, in that scene, which is like the sort of telepad, they also realized that was a bit redundant and we never saw that again. So I thought that was an interesting fact. Yeah.
Good point. Mm-hmm. So you try to watch it to the end. You're like, maybe it's going to get better, but
yeah, and because when you read back and when it was supposed to be with lizard people, I just think it just would have been such a different show, and it's just not good. But looking forward to next week.
Well, tell me about it. Well, Sue, you didn't 10 this one, right?
No.
What'd you think?
Oh, I remember. Oh my God, I remember it. I just watched it, and all I can say is that it reeks of Gene Roddenberry's mindset for the 80s, and that's the way you have to look at it. And this time when I watched it, all I could think of was, she's in the same uniform for days at a time. Well, how come they didn't give her new clothes or something while she was captive in their culture or something? And that was really the only, besides it being very strange, and just reminded me actually of, as we have been saying, of the original series. I think initially he tried to copy some things too much, and clearly he hadn't found his footing with the next gen yet. But yeah,
Looking forward to next week too.
Why, Denise? Did they even try to put you in something different other than your uniform?
No. It was probably the last thing on my mind, actually, while shooting that. I believe it or not, was questioning that how this was ever going to air. How are they ever going to get this past, the censors, past, network? And I said, I people must not be paying attention. I mean, how can you possibly make this episode and have this get on the air? And it was problematic even then. It really is. You can really get some perspective being 35 years away from it and tease it out. But so it never came up. It's not really clear how long I've been in captivity. It feels to me probably only a day at most. So it doesn't really, it's kind of, I've got the Ralph Macchio headband on, and and for the fight, and that's a little altercation.
I actually made a note of that, Denise. I called you the Yarati Kid.
Yeah,
excellent.
I know that. I just, and I'll give you a little.
Yes.
My idol. It's the 80s. We're all wearing headbands. I was thinking, watching that sort of jungle gym thing we're fighting on. It was, set aside all the writing and structure errors in this episode. That jungle gym is consisted of the neon glass tubing. That's actual neon glass.
Wow.
That they have. Now, who in their right mind makes a fighting apparatus out of glass? So this young lady who I'm fighting at one point trips, and a knee-jerk reaction reaches out to grab and breaks the neon tubing, and it shatters, and neon gas is flowing.
Jeez.
And I get a splinter in my eye. So all shooting has to stop, and I have to go to the, doctors, an eye specialist who has to flush my eye out. And, thank God nothing, happened. But it's just, one of many bizarro things about this episode, that stick with me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yikes!
Oh. That's it. That story's not in the companion.
No, that's not in there. Take that with you guys. Run with it.
Wow.
Well, I have one of those uniforms, not yours, and I don't know how you wore those things. The mannequin that I have is a size 2, and it barely fits on the mannequin. It's small. It's so little. I mean, they were so tight. How could you move?
Well, they, I didn't have as much problems with the uniform as some of the men did. I was, they stretch, it was like a Lycra, stretch. Mm-hmm. So I could move around freely in it. And I had been a dancer and practiced yoga. As a matter of fact, after, you see me do Aikido in this, in this show. From that point going forward, twice a week, Frakes and I had an Aikido instructor come to the set. And during lunch, we would study Aikido with them. They had the idea that if there were more sequences like that down the line, fight sequences or battle sequences or, holodeck fights or whatever, that our body language would have to be precise, would have to look like we really knew what we were doing. So I thought that was a great idea. And that sort of came out of that episode.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, you're muted, Ryan.
I think Ryan's muted.
Yeah, I hear.
That's too bad. I made a really good Aikido joke. But the point is, what's up, Mai? How are you live in Tokyo?
Good, sleepy. Very early.
Good
yes,
morning.
This is my new uniform. It's going to happen a lot of weeks. Get ready for it. This is a tough audience for this episode. I think that the way I looked at it was how they wrote something then that's really applicable now, given our values and how they've evolved over time. And I don't know that it wasn't on purpose, to be honest. I thought that, treating arrogance and sexism as a cultural imperative to be respected is super hard to swallow. But I think it was an intentional message from the writers that the opposite is better and correct. At least that's the way I saw that. In the opening scene, the use of the term the female, as if she were being identified by her gender identity to the exclusion of all else. My perspective is clearly that gender identity is part of the whole, but not the entire definition of a person. And so that was, I think, a very clear statement that they were trying to make to say the opposite. At the end, when Hagon says, well, you see, Captain, you may excel in technology, but not in civilized behavior. I think, again, it was a statement by the writers about the absolute absurdity of a woman having to give away her own dowry to receive the love of a man or respect in society. Mm-hmm. I thought that they were sending a message there. Here in this story, a woman's dowry was her worth, and there was no perception of anything else beyond that as to who the person was. But the funny thing with that was that made me chuckle was that in their society, which has these ridiculous values, it was the man who was almost branded with the necklace showing that he was in possession of her land. So that was kind of cool. Question for Denise on this. At the cheeky little grin after you say there would be complications at the end, when turning down the offer of Luton by his ex-wife, was this a direction, part of the script? It felt like an embellishment that was really in line with what we've been seeing of this subtle and continued efforts to show that this tough security person has a personal side, a softer side, an aspect of humanity, if you will. What was that about?
That's a really wonderful observation. We talked about this a little bit, that there an interesting, they missed an opportunity here in this story to really let this unfold between these two people, that there was a genuine attraction, just the first hit that, one gets with someone. Now, what an interesting story it would have been to observe, these two cultures, these two different cultures coming together and perhaps, really sharing something and growing this relationship. And, this vaccine is in the background, and, is he going to, Lutan going to choose to take her? Is he going to let her go back? Is she going to decide to abandon ship and go there? And, what are these, and to get to know each other and let this kind of play out. Instead, it's so brutal and aggressive and without any understanding of, just brute sexuality, is just thrown in there. And, it's so interesting that what the Ligonians revere, the men, how they respect their women is for their belongings, their land, their possessions. And yet here he's willing to abandon all of that his cultural references and his identity to a woman because of her strength. That she has nothing, in terms of what they consider of value. But none of that gets explained to us, It's just this hammered on, sexualized. I'm sexualized in it by him, and it just is so complicated. So to answer your question, it was like I was taking all of what I was. Well, I mean, the right answer, really, I thought, watching it again, would have been, I'm kind of surprised at her in the way Tasha handles this. The wife now says, "Do you want him?" And she says, "Well, no, it would be complicated." Instead of going, "Are you kidding me? Why would I want him? He kidnapped me. He forced me to fight you to the death. I plus my crew, I don't even know where, why didn't they get me out of here right away? I mean, it was so strange that she would kind of consider it, even for a second. Now, perhaps the writers do want to show her being, she's still a woman, she's still sexual, she still has desires, but it really rings untrue to me at this point watching it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you.
There was also that weird ending where she says, "You can be my second now, take your place behind me." That was such a shift in tone that made no sense, where suddenly now she's the boss and she's like, "Get your ass back there. You don't, take your place." Yeah. Anyway. So I think Faith Howell has joined us. Hello, Faith. Welcome. We are just saying nothing but scintillating things about this episode. Up next is Justin Weir. What's up, Justin? How are you?
What's up, guys? Happy to be here. I love hearing all your thoughts. You guys say things that my mind doesn't even go to. All right. Well, not my favorite episode, but I am very familiar with TNG, and I know this episode well. I took some notes. I think, Denise Crosby, you carried this episode. I think I have a couple of good lines that you delivered, and I thought they were awesome. When you said, "Of course it felt good. Troy, you're my friend and you tricked me." Like, love it.
Bitch.
And then when
friends like
at the end, when you said at the end of the episode, when you said, "How sad for you," it was like a mic drop. Like, that was like nothing more after that. Where's Worf? Where's Worf?
Oh, yeah. Well,
and I find it weird that we have this new alien culture, and honor is everything. That's Klingons, right?
Totally.
So
Yeah.
a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad for the poor bystander when the girls were fighting, and he just he dies to the side.
He didn't even realize it right away. I'm like,
no,
dude, you got
he
stabbed
did
in the chest.
Like, you had to take it
by a spiky ball. Like, you would notice that.
You got to be careful when you're in red.
The show was so exciting. I also love Beverly's line when she's dying. Sorry, that clashes with my instructions, or whatever she said before she revived her.
Orders,
too.
Yeah.
Eve England, shout out, because I did not know this was the first episode that showed the holodeck in its natural state. That's some good knowledge.
Well, thanks to that's the companion, so I can't take credit for that. But yeah, good old Larry.
Yeah. But good job reading.
And I will say the Wesley Crusher stuff was pretty cool. As soon as Beverly brought up Wesley to Picard, he's like, "Wait, what? Oh, yeah, sure."
Yeah, he was so pissed.
He was. He doesn't, but he's slowly coming more of the crew.
All right.
Yeah, that's all I got. Oh, wait.
Good stuff. Very nice. Drumsticks. Carrie Schwent is also here hanging out. Cool backdrop. How are you, Carrie?
Thank you. Yeah, I found a sunset that I had taken a while back that was absolutely perfect for the pink sunsets in the episode. But I got my limerick, I've got my favorite scene, and then some compliments for Denise. So I'll dive right in. There's a planet that possesses a cure, but they must see respect to be sure. Lutan says Tasha's fine. Irina says, hey, he's mine. The vaccine in the end is secured. Now, my favorite scene, kind of like Justin, I love anything involving Wesley Crusher. He is my number one favorite, number two being Q, because I have a crush on him even after all these years. But the scenes with Wesley were just great. And the best one is when Picard walks onto the bridge and you can see in everybody's face, they're wondering how long it's going to take him to notice that Wesley is there. And then he does, he's like, oh, Wesley. Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. And and Will Wheaton just kept it just nice and subtle. He's like just chilling. And I often wonder how they can see the display, because it looks like they're reclining at like a 45-degree angle. It looks comfortable, but yet it doesn't look comfortable enough to do their job. But it's been a question that's always been in the back of my mind. But
lounge.
Remember the guy?
I'm picking up a signal.
No, the ensign that was on the encounter at Farpoint that sat in for a moment. And he was like,
I see guys riding around like that in
LA. So funny.
But my compliment for Denise, the way you were in such a problematic episode, the way you were able to show so many sides of Tasha throughout the entire episode, her pride in the Federation and her training and her ship, and the attraction that there's those waves of attraction coming from this guy. I imagine she gets that somewhat often, but when it's so in your face, you're going to have a nice little self-confidence boost from that. So you've got that layer, and you're just the tiniest bit tempted, but you're practical enough to know that the reality of it just would never work. And just so many the layers of her in the tiny little exchange with Deanna when she sort of reads your mind without permission.
Great stuff. Very nice. Jed Thompson is here. Finally, here he is wearing a cool Chat Pack shirt. How are you? Have you seen this episode recently? And great timing in joining us, by the way.
Yeah, I'm going to take a moment here and say I enjoyed the DS9, the latter part of that, and decided that this was a great opportunity to jump in with where I jumped in with Trek. And it was a couple years after. I didn't see this. Sorry, Denise, I didn't see this first run, but I came back to it, and my husband and I, we actually watched all of Trek during the pandemic because there's 870 episodes, and and we'll get into that at some point as well. But we went backwards, and so we watched TNG relatively recently, and so I did. But I also went back and rewatched this, and I have obviously there's some issues with this episode. And the melodrama is strong with this one. And it did feel very TOS. I think, Melissa, you said something like it's a very original series. Not Trek's finest moment. I think we all agree about that. One thing that I really appreciated right off the bat was a woman chief of security, and then Tasha throws down. So I like that, 1987, and there's just, no, that's not going to happen. There's some good points in this. So that was one of them, I thought. And I also thought that when Tasha's in training, in the holodeck, the safety protocols are definitely off most of the time, would be my gut feeling. That's the one other thing, the immediate Picard reaction when Tasha gets kidnapped is to fire a spread of photon torpedoes, and it's for display, and it felt so anti-Trek, anti-Federation. Open a dialogue first, shoot later, and in this case, it was definitely flipped around.
We're gonna smoke them out.
Yeah. So that I just obviously still episode 4, episode 3 here, and it's there's a few 100 and some odd more to go to even things out here, but it was
a little bit of a rough start, but you didn't though, Jed. Thank you. That was great stuff. Chris McGee, what is up? How are you? What'd you feel about this episode? Did you like it? What'd you think?
Honestly, despite all of its problems, I still enjoyed watching it just as much as I did back when I was a preteen when it first aired, because I didn't see the problems with the episode. I just enjoyed the story. It's at its heart, it's a Prime Directive story and so forth. So I just kind of enjoyed that. And I was kind of blind to anything else that was happening there that shouldn't have happened. But I will say, though, that I know Cirroc, you said that there's no honor in this episode. I beg to differ. There's quite a bit. After all, the word was mentioned 15 times in the entire episode. I did like how Picard, offered that artifact to Lutan, and I think that, I don't know, maybe Picard has a passing interest in archaeology or something. Who knows? And personally, I would love to hear the rest of Picard's speech to Data when he was telling him about the Prime Directive there. But and you missed, Ryan, there is a name, a non-appearance mention, Emperor Soong of the Soong Dynasty. That qualifies, right?
If we see him at some point. I don't think we do, though, right? Maybe, I don't remember.
Half an am. So, and lastly, my phrase of the
that
episode.
That would be a ham, by the way.
Phrase of the episode. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it, I'm sure. So why don't we say it together here? Ready? 3, 2, 1. Then you shall have no treaty, no vaccine, and no Lieutenant Yar.
Lieutenant Yar.
Nice. That's our new motto. Justin likes it. He's muted, but everybody listening in, he's hitting his sticks together. Good stuff. Chris, Tierney C. Diekman is here. Boy, oh boy, this is looking good stuff. She's got a Star Trek shirt on. She got a cool, what are those, beanie? Like Mr. Aaron Eisenberg used to always wear. How are you?
I am all right. Wow, this episode. Oh my god. Can one be both abhorred and bored at the same time? It's so slow. It might just be me, but it felt so slow moving watching this and analyzing it. But I mean, just a few strange knowledge points. So I don't know if she was the writer or just one of the writers, but Catherine Powers, she, a few years later, wrote also the third episode after a two-part pilot for Stargate SG-1 called Emancipation, which is so incredibly similar, so incredibly racist and sexist that the first time I watched that episode thought, what is this, Code of Honor? And looked into it and was like, are you kidding me? Is this writer okay? Like with her soul, is she okay? And the lieutenant character on that, played by Kari Hiroyuki Tegawa, some people might know him as Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat.
He was also in Encounter at Farpoint.
Yes,
as the also sort of racist role of the Mandarin bailiff. He's Japanese, but either way, just strange little crossovers there. But wow, I forgot how not just racist, but horribly sexist this episode is. Like you, Eve, I really wanted to turn it off. And I've seen this episode several times, but I've never tried to actually analyze it without just like laughing the whole time at how bad it was and kind of paying attention to other things. So I'll just go to some positives here, because that's what I just tried to do, was look for positives. And a big one being kind of like last episode, Denise, you carried this. And I'm again not trying to be biased. I really looked at it like this, like your performance did for a lot of these scenes that are so hard to take. And I love seeing tough Tasha, seeing a female security officer never seemed out of place to me in any way. And you pulled it off in everything. I mean, you could throw down, like, no problem. But I did not like, as you pointed out towards the end, with that interaction with Urena. It's too, I won't go into it, but just, yeah, you made the point that I wrote down of how that interaction went down, of they downplayed what the realistic reaction should have been. That felt like how a man would have written that reaction in the 1980s and earlier, what they think that should have been like as someone who objectified women, and it bothered the heck out of me. That's not a positive, though. Going back, the costuming is pretty awesome, though a little primitive stereotype. It's pretty great, and everybody's got some killer workout routines going on. They can pull off those costumes real well. So that was great. There's that, like, the original series hidden temple kind of sets going on, which are very fun. Although, wow, neon glass, terrible. The score is fantastic. So, yeah, it's a very transition episode. I think of this one when I think of first season, how they transition from TOS to TNG aesthetic. Blah. But, oh God, what are my other positives? Did I already run out? I might have.
Well, hopefully you have a bunch more and we can save those.
Yeah, we'll
for
skip them to the other one. But it was a tough rewatch. Not quite as tough as I thought it would be, but you're right. So much more could have unfolded with this. I wish we could have seen that, and they did you dirty yet again for your character. But also, thank God for you and the early episodes of TNG, because nope, they would have been canceled without you, I swear. Cheers to the Urati King.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow.
Great stuff.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for saving this show for us, Denise. Otherwise, what would we be talking about 35 years later? What's up, Matt Boardman?
Yeah.
Hey,
How are
hey.
you?
Good,
What do you
good.
think about this episode? You're hanging out in the holodeck as well, you and TJ.
Yeah. Different holodecks, though.
Oh.
I don't know what TJ's got going on over there. I don't want to be
That's funny.
The sticks. No, it's funny because as I'm sitting here listening to everybody's comments, I'm like, how, I don't want to say cool, but how great is it that we can sit here 35 years later, and as a human race, we've evolved enough in our cultural understandings that we can look at this episode and we can identify the things that don't sit well with us. So I think that's great that we can look at it with that lens and go, yeah, these are things that were not good, but now we know better. But I like to, I was looking at it, I was like, okay, what can I take from this episode? Because obviously there's faults, but I love that this is kind of our first look at diplomacy in the Next Generation. Encounter at Farpoint kind of gave us a little bit, but this is like, okay, now here's Picard the diplomat. Is it perfect in the way that we get to see it? No, but we see like a genuine Picard is trying to find common ground with this alien race that's so opposite of what the Federation's values are, and his attempts to kind of accommodate because they have this vaccine that they need, and which kind of made me think of what Denise was saying. Why would Tasha respond the way that she did? Why wouldn't she be like, kind of slap him upside the head a little bit? And I think that's the Starfleet officer training in her, just kind of going, okay, I have to maintain my decorum, rather than stepping out of line here. I mean, it kind of harkens back to when Worf was going to shoot the view screen when Q was on there, and he was like, what are you going to do? You're going to shoot the view screen? He's not there. It was very out of line for what a Starfleet officer would do. But that, to me, kind of harkens to Tasha's professionalism, is that rather than, I mean, there was probably so much that was running through her head and words that were not repeatable on screen, but she bit her tongue and she just said, I'm going to do the Starfleet officer thing. And yeah, it just wouldn't work out, So the other thing that I loved about this episode, we get some great Geordi and Data interaction there. And it's, we kind of see that Data is still developing in his character and his interactions with the crew. It's great seeing Geordi shave. I don't know. Obviously, I didn't shave today, so I was like, "Hey, I feel that right there."
You could live vicariously through him.
Exactly. I was like, "Oh man, what is it like to shave with a sonic shaver? That would be great." But then the other thing I thought was great was, we get some more Wesley, and I love with each episode. You get the B and the C plots, and as you start watching down the season, you see how those little things start to build on each other, and this is kind of one more thing with Wesley's journey that I enjoyed.
Good stuff. Wesley has been quite the topic of conversation today before the free-for-all as well. But stay tuned to find out what that was. Faith Howell is also hanging out almost in Wesley Crusher's spot, actually, on the bridge of the Enterprise D. How are you, Faith? What'd you think of this?
Definitely it's one of the weirder episodes that I remember. But I will say that Tasha was a jewel this week. So much fun to watch and think back to probably the first couple of times I watched it when I was little, and going through my formative years, and how lilting the delivery of the lines were and how feminine she is while she's kicking butt. So it was very interesting that they're already setting her up to be both, in a lot of different ways. And so, like growing up, that was an icon, and I'm sorry we did get more of her, but definitely I'm going to appreciate getting to come back and watch these again.
Ugh,
Right.
I know.
Sweet.
If we had 173 episodes of Tasha Yar and 4 movies, man, oh man, that would be good stuff, wouldn't it? Well,
do it.
Denise, Cirroc, any final thoughts before we roll out on this jewel of an episode?
I don't know. Did anyone else think of Coming to America with King Jaffe Joffer?
Yes. When they rolled out the carpet.
When he rolled out the
Yes,
carpet.
that was it. Yes. When he kicks
James
it.
Earl Jones. I was just waiting for the rose petals, you know?
Well, and also there was that famous actor, you know, when I was a kid, who would do the 7-Up commercials.
Yes.
You know, the cola nut.
And you go,
And it was
have some 7-Up.
It was just, was it 7-Up? Yeah, I think it was. But
I'm not sure.
This kind of accent that everyone, you know, on the planet had, this kind of imperial, sort of regal, oh, Tasha, I like, you know, it's like, what is
I am King Jaffe Joffer.
Right, exactly. It's all of this going on. And, you know, it's funny you say Coming to America, because Coming to America was filming at the Paramount lot when we were doing not this episode, but soon. But
they stole that from you guys. This was 87.
All the things to steal from.
Absolutely. John Landis watched this episode and just said, I want this. This is what I want.
It's gold. All right. All right. Well, great stuff. So now we know that Coming to America was just trying to copy this gem of an episode.
Yeah.
But we have to run. Thank you so much, Melissa, TJ, Eve, Sue, Mai, Chris, Jed, Carrie, Justin, Tierney, Matt, and Faith, eventually, for joining us. Thank you very much. It's been a great time. We will see you all next time on The Seventh Rule.